the quiet suburb of Eldridge Hollow, nestled on the outskirts of a forgotten industrial town in upstate New York. The streets wound like veins through a landscape of aging Victorian homes and overgrown maple trees. Streetlights flickered like dying embers against the encroaching night, casting elongated shadows that seemed to whisper secrets to the wind. The houses huddled together, their faded paint peeling like old skin, as if seeking protection from the chill that always lingered a little too long after sunset. It was here, in this unremarkable enclave, where neighbors exchanged polite nods, but rarely delved deeper, that Elara Voss had carved out her existence. Elara was 32, a graphic designer who worked from home, her days filled with the glow of dual monitors and the incessant ping of client emails. She had moved to Eldridge Hollow 5 years ago, seeking solace after a messy divorce that left her with a modest inheritance and a desire for isolation. Her ex-husband, Marcus, had been a charming salesman whose infidelity shattered her trust in intimacy. Now she lived alone in a creaky 2-story Victorian at the end of Willow Lane, its turreted roof sagging under the weight of decades. The house had character, or so the realtor had said: high ceilings, ornate woodwork, and a wraparound porch that creaked in the breeze. Elara loved it at first, filling it with plants and artwork, turning the attic into a studio where she created logos and illustrations for small businesses. Her life seemed ordinary on the surface. Coffee in the mornings, brewed strong and black to chase away the fog of sleepless nights. Deadlines in the afternoons, her fingers flying over her tablet as she sketched digital worlds far removed from her own, and evenings spent with a glass of wine, binge-watching shows that promised escape. But beneath it all, restlessness simmered. Elara had always been prone to vivid dreams, remnants of a childhood marked by tragedy. At 12, she'd watched her younger sister, Lila, drown in the murky waters of a local pond during a family picnic. Elara had frozen on the bank, her screams lodged in her throat as Lila's small hands flailed. The guilt had never fully dissipated, manifesting in occasional nightmares that left her waking in a cold sweat. Therapy had helped, or so she thought, but lately the nights had grown increasingly tormented. It started subtly, as these things often do. A shadow flitting in the corner of her eye during late-night work sessions, dismissed as fatigue. A chill that seeped through the cracks in her old home, despite the sealed windows and the hum of the central heating. Elara chalked it up to the house's age, drafty vents, perhaps a mouse in the walls. But soon, it became something far more insidious: the suffocating darkness. The first true encounter came on a stormy autumn evening in late October. Thunder rumbled like distant artillery, rain lashing the windows in sheets. Elara had collapsed into bed after a grueling day, her body aching from hours hunched over her computer. A major project, a rebranding for a boutique coffee chain, had kept her up until the wee hours the night before, and exhaustion pulled her under like a riptide. Sleep came swiftly, but it was not the restful oblivion she craved. In the depths of her slumber, awareness flickered back, not full wakefulness, but a cruel limbo where her mind screamed while her body lay frozen. Sleep paralysis, she would later learn, but in that moment, it felt like death's rehearsal. She couldn't move, couldn't scream, couldn't even twitch a finger. Her eyes, wide open in the dim glow of her bedside lamp, stared at the ceiling as the room began to change. The air grew heavy, pregnant with an unnatural humidity that made her skin prickle. It started with a whisper, faint and guttural, like wind rustling through rotting leaves in a forgotten forest. Then the shadows stirred. From the corners of the room, where the lamplight barely reached, a viscous black fog materialized, coiling up from the floorboards like smoke from an unseen fire. It wasn't ordinary mist. It was heavy, oily, clinging to everything it touched with a greasy persistence. The fog spread slowly at first, tendrils snaking across the hardwood floor, climbing the bedposts like ivy from hell. It pressed down on her chest, a weight that squeezed the air from her lungs, making each shallow breath a labored gasp. Elara's heart pounded in terror, a frantic drumbeat echoing in her ears. The tendrils inched closer, probing the air around her face. One brushed her cheek, cold and slimy, like the touch of a drowned corpse. Then, with horrifying inevitability, they invaded, slithering into her mouth and nose, filling her throat with the taste of decay. It was overwhelming. Rotting earth, spoiled meat, the sour tang of forgotten graves, mixed with the metallic bite of old blood. She gagged inwardly, her mind recoiling in revulsion. But her body remained still, a prisoner in its own skin. The fog whispered secrets in her ears, voices that weren't human, layered, echoing as if spoken from the bottom of a well. "Join us," they hissed, the words slithering into her brain like worms. "The void awaits. We've been waiting for you, Elara." Shapes formed within the blackness, elongated figures with limbs too long and thin, faces blurred into masks of agony, mouths stretched in silent howls. One hovered over her bed, its form shifting like smoke in the wind. It reached out with a hand that dissolved into wisps, fingers brushing her skin like spider silk, leaving trails of icy numbness. The fear was paralyzing, a primal dread that clawed at her soul, deeper than anything she'd felt since Lila's death. Was this real, or a hallucination born of exhaustion and buried guilt? Time stretched into eternity in that frozen state, each second a torment. Finally, with a jolt that felt like electricity surging through her veins, she awoke, gasping for air. The fog dissipated like a bad dream, retreating into the shadows as if it had never been. But the taste lingered on her tongue, foul and persistent, as if she'd swallowed graveyard soil. She stumbled to the bathroom, rinsing her mouth repeatedly, but it clung like a curse. Shaken, Elara tried to rationalize it. She brewed a pot of tea and sat at her kitchen table, the storm still raging outside. A quick internet search on her phone revealed sleep paralysis, a common phenomenon where the brain wakes before the body, often accompanied by hallucinations. Forums were filled with similar stories: demons, aliens, shadowy figures. Old hag syndrome, some called it, from folklore where witches sat on sleepers' chests. Elara laughed nervously to herself, the sound hollow in the empty house. It was just her mind playing tricks, exacerbated by stress and poor sleep hygiene. She resolved to establish a better routine. No screens before bed, herbal tea instead of wine. The next day, she shared the story with her closest friend, Jenna, over brunch at a quaint cafe in town. Jenna, a bubbly elementary school teacher with a penchant for true crime podcasts, listened wide-eyed. "Oh my God, Elara, that sounds terrifying. But yeah, sleep paralysis is a thing. My cousin had it after her baby was born. Exhaustion does weird stuff to the brain." They laughed it off, clinking mimosas, and Elara felt a weight lift. It was nothing more than that weird thing where you think demons are sitting on your chest. But deep down, the fear gnawed at her, a subtle erosion of her confidence. That night, she double-checked the locks, left a light on in the hallway, and drifted off with cautious optimism. The episodes didn't stop. If anything, they intensified, turning her nights into a battlefield. The second encounter came just 3 days later. Elara had taken precautions. Lavender oil diffused in the air, a white noise machine humming softly with ocean waves. She read a light novel until her eyes drooped, hoping for peaceful slumber. But the paralysis struck again, swift and merciless, locking her in place, like a vice. The black fog returned, thicker this time, billowing from under the bed and the closet door like exhaled breath from a giant beast. It filled the room until she could barely make out the outlines of her furniture. The familiar shapes distorted into menacing forms. The pressure on her chest was heavier, compressing her ribs until she felt them creak under the strain. Her lungs burned for air, each inhale a shallow sip through the oppressive weight. The tendrils forced their way deeper, not just probing but invading with purpose, choking her from within. The taste of decay was overpowering, now mingled with something metallic, like blood from a fresh wound, and a bitter undercurrent of moldy bread. The whispers grew louder, overlapping into a cacophony that drilled into her skull. "We see you, Elara. We've always seen you. Your secrets, your sins." The shapes multiplied, dozens now, crowding around her bed like mourners at a funeral. Their eyes glowed faintly like embers in the fog, piercing through the darkness with accusatory stares. One leaned in close, its face inches from hers, features twisting into a grotesque smile that revealed rows of jagged, blackened teeth. She felt its icy touch on her throat, fingers, or were they claws, squeezing just enough to make stars explode in her vision, her pulse thundering in her ears. In her mind, Elara screamed, begging for release. Memories flashed unbidden, Lila's face, pale and pleading, as she sank beneath the pond's surface, her small hand reaching out. "Why didn't you save me?" The whispers seemed to echo, twisting the knife of guilt. When she finally awoke, drenched in sweat, her sheets tangled like restraints, the taste persisted for hours. She scrubbed her teeth until her gums bled, gargled with mouthwash until her throat was raw, but it wouldn't fade. Stumbling to the mirror, she noticed faint bruises on her chest, finger-like marks, purple and tender, as if invisible hands had pressed there. "Just from thrashing in my sleep," she muttered to her reflection, but the lie rang hollow. Her eyes looked haunted, ringed with dark circles that no concealer could hide. As the weeks dragged on, the suffocating darkness became a nightly ritual, eroding her sanity like acid on stone. Elara dreaded sunset, the golden light giving way to twilight's menace. Her once cozy bedroom transformed into a chamber of horrors, every shadow a potential harbinger. She began avoiding sleep altogether, propping herself up with caffeine and late-night walks through the suburb's empty streets. But exhaustion always won, pulling her back into the abyss. Her work suffered. Designs that once flowed effortlessly now turned morbid. Shadowy figures lurking in the backgrounds of logos, colors muted to grays and blacks. Clients complained of unsettling vibes, one even canceling a contract after seeing a coffee cup illustration where the steam formed screaming faces. Elara's boss, a no-nonsense woman named Carla, called her in for a video chat. "Elara, what's going on? Your work's been off. Are you okay?" Elara forced a smile, blaming it on a creative rut. But inside, she crumbled. She confided in Jenna more deeply, the two meeting for coffee almost daily. Jenna, ever the supportive friend, suggested practical solutions. "Have you tried melatonin? Or maybe see a doctor?" Elara nodded, but her voice trembled as she described the escalating horrors. "It's not just paralysis, Jen. It feels real, like something's feeding on me." Jenna's eyes widened, but she hugged her tightly. We'll figure it out. Maybe it's the house. Old places have bad energy. Desperation drove Elara to seek professional help. She visited a therapist, Dr. Harlan, a kindly man with wire-rimmed glasses and a soothing baritone. In his cozy office lined with books on psychology, she poured out her story, tears streaming down her face. It's like I'm being punished, she whispered, finally voicing the guilt over Lila. Dr. Harlan nodded empathetically. Sleep paralysis can be linked to stress and trauma. We'll work through it. He prescribed mild sleeping pills and cognitive behavioral therapy techniques, journaling dreams, visualization exercises. For a few nights, the pills deepened her sleep, but they only made the paralysis more profound, trapping her longer in the fog's embrace. One session, she broke down completely. The taste. It's always there now, even when I'm awake, like rot in my mouth. Dr. Harlan suggested it was psychosomatic, a manifestation of anxiety, but Elara knew better. The fog had begun seeping into her waking hours. She'd catch glimpses of it in mirrors, a dark haze blurring her reflection, making her features twist into something unfamiliar. In the shower, steam would thicken unnaturally, carrying whispers that made her skin crawl. At the grocery store, a sudden chill would descend, and she'd taste decay on her tongue, forcing her to abandon her cart and flee. She tried alternative remedies. A meditation app promised relaxation, but during guided sessions, the fog would intrude, turning serene visualizations into nightmares. She burned sage, the smoke filling her home with a pungent aroma, but it only seemed to agitate the darkness, making the next episode more vicious. In a fit of desperation, she contacted a local priest, Father Morales, who agreed to bless the house. He arrived on a crisp November afternoon, his black cassock flapping in the wind. Sprinkling holy water and muttering Latin prayers, he moved from room to room. Evil spirits, begone, he intoned. Elara watched hopefully, but that night, the fog returned with vengeance, the whispers mocking, "Your faith is weak, your God cannot save you." The episodes evolved, each more elaborate and terrifying. One night, as the paralysis gripped her, the fog didn't just envelop, it pulsed with a rhythmic life, like a heartbeat from the void. Tendrils wormed deeper, not just into her lungs, but seemingly into her veins, spreading icy numbness through her body. Visions accompanied the invasion, flashes of other victims, their faces contorted in eternal screams, trapped in a limbo of darkness. She saw a young man from the 1800s, his eyes bulging as the fog claimed him, an elderly woman clawing at her throat, a child, eerily reminiscent of Lila, whispering, "Join us, sister." The entities unveiled themselves more distinctly, ancient monstrosities, forgotten abominations from a primal era, before light ever touched the void. They were fragments of primordial chaos, nourishing themselves on mortal terror and anguish, irresistibly drawn to souls already broken. "You're ideal," they rasped. "Your remorse is exquisite." The flavor of putrefaction shifted constantly, decaying meat one instant, rancid milk the next, forever infused with the sharp tang of regret. Elara plunged deeper into her investigation. Countless sleepless nights spent combing through shadowy forums and esoteric websites, she uncovered fragmented reports of the Black Veil, a malediction rumored to target those carrying concealed shame. One anonymous writer tied it to Native American legends, a vengeful spirit of the drowned. Another connected it to old European tales of the nightmare, a demon that crushed sleepers into insanity. Elara's childhood tragedy matched the pattern perfectly, her paralyzed helplessness echoing the classic symptoms. Was this retribution? The question only intensified the dread, transforming each attack into a bespoke nightmare sculpted from her own sins. She began reaching out online, joining communities for sleep paralysis survivors. Responses flooded in. "It's all in your head," some insisted. Yet others described disturbingly parallel experiences. The mist, the taste, the murmurs. A user called Shadow Survivor 87 swore they had broken free by directly confronting their guilt through a ritual. Stare into it. Offer your apology to the emptiness, they urged. Elara tried, murmuring regrets to Lila in the suffocating dark, but the attempts only summoned fiercer visitations. Her relationships buckled beneath the strain. Jenna grew worried and offered her couch, but Elara declined, terrified of dragging the shadow into someone else's life. "I don't want to poison you," she whispered, voice splintering. Marcus, her ex, reached out unexpectedly after hearing rumors through friends. "You sound terrible, Elle. Do you need anything?" His kindness felt like a fragile rope thrown to a drowning woman, but stubborn pride made her end the call. Loneliness tightened its grip, her existence contracting until only the house and its terrors remained. The physical damage accumulated. Appetite vanished, leaving her gaunt and hollow-cheeked. Unexplained bruises bloomed across her body, arms, thighs, throat, imprints that resembled grasping fingers. She documented them with photographs as proof for Dr. Harlan, who quietly suggested unconscious self-injury. Elara knew better. The entities were branding her, claiming ownership. The breaking point arrived during a merciless December, when a ferocious blizzard buried Eldridge Hollow under meters of snow, sealing the suburb in frozen solitude. Electricity stuttered, the wind screaming like tormented spirits. Elara fortified her bedroom, every light burning at full strength, a desperate space heater fighting the cold. She downed twice her usual dose of sleeping pills, craving nothingness, but unconsciousness seized her regardless. The paralysis struck immediately, more total and merciless than ever before. The fog exploded like an eruption of liquid obsidian, swallowing the room in heartbeats, extinguishing every light until only a sickly dimness lingered. It felt alive, thick with vicious purpose. Tendrils forced their way into every opening, mouth, nostrils, ears, even seeping beneath her eyelids, painting her vision with inky tears. The rot scorched like corrosive poison, overwhelming every sense. Taste, smell, touch, all devoured by decomposition. The entities converged, their shapes hardening into grotesque nightmares. Skin resembling shriveled, splitting bark that wept dark fluid. Limbs stretched and articulated in impossible angles. Eyes vast abysses that drank all light. Scores of them surrounded her bed, intoning in deep guttural languages older than time itself. The leader, a towering silhouette twice the height of a man, pressed its face to hers. Its breath was a gale of putrefaction, eyes boring into her soul. "Wake no more," it intoned, voice like grinding stones. "Become the darkness. Your sister waits." In that moment, the fear peaked into pure, unadulterated terror. Elara's mind shattered, fragments of memories swirling in the void. Lila's drowning, her own inaction, years of suppressed grief exploding forth. She saw Lila in the fog, pale and accusatory, merging with the entities. "Why didn't you save me?" the girl whispered, her voice blending with the chorus. Elara bargained silently. "I'm sorry. Take me instead." But the fog only laughed, a wet, gurgling sound that vibrated through her bones, pulling her deeper into the abyss. Time lost meaning. Was it minutes or hours? The blizzard raged outside, but inside, eternity unfolded. Elara felt herself dissolving, her essence mingling with the darkness, the taste of decay becoming her new reality, eternal, inescapable. Surrender crept in, a seductive whisper. Let go. No more pain. When morning came, the storm had passed, leaving a pristine white world. Neighbors, shoveling driveways, noticed Elara's door ajar, snow drifting into the foyer. Concerned, Mrs. Hargrove from next door knocked, then entered, calling out. The house was eerily quiet, the air thick with a foul odor like spoiled food left too long. Upstairs, in the bedroom, they found her. Elara lay in bed, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling with unseeing gaze. Her body was rigid, as if still in paralysis, no breath stirring her chest. But a faint smile curved her lips, as if she'd finally surrendered to the embrace, finding peace in the void. The room reeked of rot, the walls seeming to absorb the scent. Those who entered swore. They saw wisps of black fog retreating into the cracks, heard faint whispers on the edge of hearing. The police investigation was brief. Natural causes, perhaps a heart attack induced by sleep disorder. But rumors spread through Eldridge Hollow like wildfire. Jenna, devastated, cleared out the house, finding Elara's journals filled with frantic scrawls about the fog. "It's coming for me," the last entry read, "and it hungers." To this day, the house stands empty, its windows like vacant eyes watching the street. Real estate agents struggle to sell it, potential buyers complaining of an oppressive atmosphere, a lingering taste of decay in the air. And sometimes, on still evenings when the streetlights flicker, passers-by feel a chill, taste rot on the wind, a warning that the suffocating darkness hungers still, waiting for the next soul burdened by guilt to fall into its paralyzing grasp.